Welcome to Won't You Be My Gamer. We are somewhere in the bowels of PBS once again and joined today by pirate historian Dr. Rebecca Simons. Hi Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm Elise Willems.
I'm Nicole Zavalich.
And we're talking pirates today. We're playing Skull and Bones. And we are about to, what are we doing, Nicole? We're going to steal somebody else's ship. We're going to plunder some treasure.
I think we're going to make some friendships that are going to last a lifetime.
Oh, okay, that's not usually what pirates tend to do.
Okay, well that's what my goal going into this is. No, we are landed on St. Anne's. This is a pirate haven. This is kind of our first look at pirate society in the game.
Okay. And one of the things we are also doing is looking into pirate myths and misconceptions. So we've got a few we've looked at so far. There are no tube tops. This is wrong. This is not historically accurate, correct, Rebecca?
That is correct. It's just not practical.
This is not practical.
Yeah.
Then or now.
Never.
Can we say that?
Outlaw tube tops.
But there was romance. One I didn't check off that we talked about last time was oranges and scurvy.
Oh yeah, that's
I
right.
did eat oranges.
Now, this main character, she has a really pretty necklace. I noticed that you're wearing a pretty necklace. Is that this coin? Mm-hmm. Is that like a pirate thing?
You know, it's actually not, but I like it because I feel like it kind of looks like one.
Absolutely. You could have lied to me so hard right now.
I know, but I would have felt like, I know that like someone watching would probably zoom in and then they'd know I was lying. No, this is actually a replica of a Roman coin that I got at a farmer's market of all places.
Love that.
I love it. I always, whenever I do something piratey like this, I always like to wear it because I feel like it just has like the aura of being like a piratey doubloon.
Absolutely does.
Doubloon, is that the official pirate currency?
So the official currency of the Caribbean was the Spanish coins. They were called pieces of 8, and they were silver coins. So silver was actually the currency, not gold. Gold was like really valuable and people wanted it, but everything was based on silver because you could find it a lot more. Silver was more durable, and so pieces of 8 was they were Spanish. And it kind of became like the currency for everybody trading throughout.
So where do you think the notion of gold comes from? Is it just fancier, the idea of like pirates looking for gold?
Well, gold has really, really, really high value, and it's always been really heavily desired, particularly, going back hundreds, if not thousands of years, because it's really good as a decorative item. You can make things like plates out of it, really show off your wealth. It's not a very useful metal. You can't make weapons out of it. It's too soft. But
malleable.
Yeah, exactly. But it's got like a lot of value in terms of your social status and everything like that. There are some coins that are made out of gold. Those would be more like what we call doubloons, and they're worth like many pieces of 8. But they were a lot more rare. Silver was basically the standard currency. Like you'll get gold, you'll cash it in for silver.
So I was watching something on pirate shipwrecks and people going to them expecting to find so much gold, so much treasure, and in actuality they would just find pottery.
Right, yeah. So gold and what we think of as treasure in terms of like jewels and money and everything like that, not as common on ships as we think. Because ships were trading goods that you could sell, and that's what pirates were really after, were goods to sell or goods that they could keep. If a ship had a lot of gold or silver or jewels, that was a bonus. But a lot of times those ships are going to be extremely heavily protected. They're not quite as common, and so pirates wouldn't really take the risk of trying to get those ships. Those would be more like Spanish galleons, and the vast majority of pirate ships were smaller. There were some pirates that had huge ships, but that's very much the exception, not the rule. So the idea is, let's get items that will sell. These will be things like textiles, spices, alcohol, pottery, or porcelain in particular from Asia. That was really, really popular. These are things that'll be worth a lot of money. Pirates can sell them or even keep for themselves.
So the whole trope of treasure, there's a pirate that's found a map and there's an X on it that marks the spot, that's probably not something that actually happened.
It's probably the number one disappointing thing I say is that pirates did not bury treasure. I know. They did not. Pirates, they would take their money, they go on land, and they will sell their portion of the goods, spend their money, and when they're done, they usually go back to pirating. If they're lucky, they might retire, but pirates never stashed anything and went back for it later. It was just too risky to do that.
They lived in the moment.
They did, exactly. No, they literally did live in the moment. There was no reason to stash anything and go back for it later.
So if I had a friend named Jacole, let's say, who told me that they had a map
Hypothetical.
that could lead to some treasure, and asked me if I wanted to be an investor, they might be trying to trick me.
You know, this actually did happen before in history in the 1980s.
But it wasn't Jacole.
It was not Jacole?
No,
The Dread Pirate
it was
Jacole?
not, unfortunately. But there was someone named Brownlee, and he actually did try to put together an expedition to the South China Seas, saying that this is where Captain Kidd kept his treasure, and this was based on something called the Kidd-Palmer Maps, which was a map showing the South China Seas with an X saying this is where he buried it. Turned out that was a hoax. It had actually already been verified as a hoax, but he tried to set up this expedition. It went nowhere, it failed, and he was forced to pay all the money back. It just didn't work.
Man, always be scamming. The scams have existed as long as history has. Okay, so I'm just gonna put liars next to treasure. That is absolutely not. Look, there's a little cat over there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good-looking cat.
You know what they say about cats, Nicole?
Don't pick them up.
There's always rats.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, it actually was pretty common to have cats, like pretty much anywhere, and they would bring cats onto ships because there were always rats in ships.
How do the rats get on the ships?
You know, it's just like when they're docked, like, you know, when you're playing the game, you can see rats running around everywhere, and anytime there's just like a lot of food, and like you're seeing here, like you're gonna have a lot of rats running around. And
Stowaway rats.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna stow away. There's lots of food stores on ships, and so rats get into it, and it can cause disease. As we know, like the Black Death came from rats. So it's really common to have cats on a ship, and the whole point is like they eat the rats, and they get rid of them. Plus, also, it wasn't too uncommon to have pets on ships because it's good companionship. You know, we hear kind of the stereotype of pirates having like the parrot on the shoulder.
Oh, yeah, we got that.
And it's
Number
actually not, we don't know for fact if pirates did, but we do know that sailors sometimes would pick up like tropical birds and keep them on the ships and stuff like that, you know, as kind of like a pet and companion. We love pets. We've had pets since like we were first humans. So yeah, it stands to reason that, you know, not necessarily parrots, but like, you know, like birds and cats, like pets did exist on ships. Sometimes animals were used as kind of their own form of cargo. People were really into exotic animals and would kind of like travel with them and sell them and show them, or you would have animals serving as pets or as food sources as well, fresh food sources. If you had the room and you had the materials to be able to keep them alive.
Right, and then if you didn't, then it's like, oh well, we have to eat them.
Dinner.
Right.
I guess. Yeah.
if they could, that's but at the same time it's like butchering and roasting on a ship, it's dirty business. It's going to be very risky.
Did they ever make a pig in man's clothes walk the plank? You know, when they would have trials for animals and they would dress them up in people clothes because it felt better.
No, in fact, walking the plank actually wasn't really a thing. If people were punished, they would get walking the plank wasn't really a thing. If they were punished, they were usually kept in the hold and whipped or tied to a post and whipped. Sometimes marooned on an island, meaning they abandon you with like a gun with a single bullet.
Yep.
We see that in Pirates Caribbean.
Yeah.
Walking the plank, where do you think maybe that trope comes from? And is there
Treasure Island.
Okay.
Pretty much any trope we think about pirates is going to come from the novel Treasure Island.
So
RLS?
was that guy just like obsessed with pirates, or like what was his story?
So Robert Louis Stevenson here at Treasure Island, he was from Scotland, and they have like a huge pirate legacy. He grew up hearing pirate stories. There was a book published in 1724 called A General History of the Pirates, which was a series of like pirate biographies and the most infamous ones. And it's never gone out of print. Like you can still buy a copy today. And so he read that book and he kind of started creating it as a story for his son. And then eventually wrote it down and published it chapter by chapter as a serial. He was also quite inspired by his trip to America. He met a lot of Civil War veterans who were missing limbs and missing eyes and had eye patches. He also had a relative, I believe an uncle, who was either missing a limb or had an eye patch. And he used that lot to kind of build up his characters, like Long John Silver and pirates with peg legs or eye patches. And that's also not too inaccurate because there are going to be injuries on a ship.
Can you customize your character with a peg leg in this, Nicole?
Not that as far as I know, but here we just got to the costume lady, and these are some of the presets. Like, let's see, do any of these flag to you as like inherently just so wrong?
Oh, the one that was just up there, that is so wrong.
Yeah,
right
like
there.
I don't even know what that's.
Like, what is it trying to be?
I'm wondering if that is like a set that has to do with another Ubisoft title or something. You know, like maybe a tie-in, because what is this supposed to be?
Like a Far Cry.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What's interesting though is that the mask she's wearing, like, it looks kind of terrifying. Pirates did use terror tactics when they would attack ships sometimes, in order to get the other ship to surrender as fast as possible. So sometimes they might use sort of theatrics like that. Blackbeard was known to do that. But otherwise, like an outfit like that, you know, like we said before, tube tops. No, you want to be protected from the sun.
But this outfit to me is like the stereotypical, I'm just a pirate.
This is a very standard ship outfit. This is very practical. You know, she's got like a scarf, like neck protection, you know, like kind of sleeves you can roll up or roll down for sun protection. She's got belts that have multiple purposes. You can hold things on them. You can use them to kind of maybe put over your head if it rains. You know, the trousers and the boots also, those are pretty good because they'll protect your legs if there's like a flood or if they have to like tar the ship or something like that. This one, not very practical. Those sandals, no. You need to protect your feet a lot better.
What do you need, like a closed-toe shoe?
You need a closed-toe shoe, or you need to be barefoot, but not sandals like
For the
that.
grip?
Yep, exactly. Not sandals like that. They'll get caught.
In terms of like hygiene, cleanliness, what could we be looking for in a pirate here? What could we expect?
Yeah, you know, sailors at sea, pirates, you know, hygiene was not the greatest.
They're surrounded by so much water. I feel like they could have tried harder.
Well, the thing is like, you know, salt water is going to dry out the skin. Like sometimes they might use salt water to bathe, but water was really precious. And, you know, they're going to use it for drinking. They're not really going to use it for bathing. If it rained, they would use that. Sometimes they might use seawater. But for the most part, you know, the hygiene just wasn't great back then. You know, a lot of them might have really bad teeth because of the food they're eating or the conditions or scurvy. Now, pirates in a way were still healthier than a lot of other sailors because since they're robbing ships, they're replenishing their food stores a lot more often. So they're a bit more well fed as a result.
This eye patch here looks like someone with minimal sewing skills made
Right.
it. Like I maybe could figure that one out.
Right.
Like some hockey skate laces.
Yeah, but like this
Cobbled
one's
together.
fancy. This could
Yeah.
have some like gold embellishments.
Right. Yeah, the eye patch is interesting because, you know, we see tons of images of pirates wearing eye patches, and there's, you know, a lot of people believe that pirates wore an eye patch. That way, when they're going below deck, they can see in the dark quicker because they have one eye adjusted.
So Rebecca, this was a big thing before you got here.
Yeah.
The folks at PBS, everybody wanted to know if that was true or not.
I want to believe that.
Me too.
Why is that something I want to believe?
Don't break our hearts.
The
Don't break our hearts.
answer is inconclusive.
Okay, I'll take
And
it.
that's because, like, you know, it is a theory, but I think the show Mythbusters actually tried that out, and they found it didn't really make too much of a difference, from what I remember. And also, the idea of trying out the eye patch for that specific purpose actually was like more of like World War I when they were developing the more advanced navies. So during this time period, if you had an eye patch, it was usually because you may have lost an eye or because you had an injury and you're trying to protect it. Generally, an eye patch, you know, if you're going below deck, you know, like, it'll be kind of dark down there, but you have tons of lanterns, you've got lots of portholes, you'll still get light down there. And also, the vast majority of pirates, they're not going below the hold during battle. They're staying up on the deck in battle.
Who would kind of go below deck and for what reason or purpose?
So the person who would go below deck, that would be someone like the captain or most likely the quartermaster. And this would be after the battle is done, the pirates have won, and the vast majority of the time, pirate battles ended up not being quite as violent as we think. Like, of course, a lot were, but pirates wanted to get in and out as fast as possible with as little casualties as possible.
Like me at Target on a Saturday.
Get in and get out before Target takes advantage of you. But
And it
usually,
will.
it's going to be the captain or the quartermaster, and what they do is they work with probably the quartermaster, because it's the quartermaster who's actually in charge of inventory and payments. And they're going to negotiate with the other quartermaster and be like, look, show us your log, show us your inventory, this is what we're taking, give it to us or else we will kill you. And they're the ones who will go below deck and take a look at the stores. The vast majority of pirates, they're on the deck fighting to get people to surrender as fast as possible.
Something that I need to ask, and I'm also very, very afraid for what answer we're going to get, Rebecca. But of course, we do the jokey pirate voice, the "Arr, matey, oh, you blimey, oh." Please tell me that they talk like that. Please tell us.
They didn't. No. We get the R matey from the actor Robert Newton in the 1950 or 51 version of Treasure Island.
Oh man,
Disney's
that's so
version.
recent.
Yeah, what he did is he felt Long John Silver should have a very distinctive accent. He was from Cornwall, I believe, which actually has a very significant pirate history. And what he did is he kind of very much exaggerated the Cornwall accent to the point where it was comical. And that's where we get that idea. The reality is, you know, pirate ships were extremely diverse. You have people from all over Britain, Ireland, Scotland, the American colonies, and all the accents were going to be very different. You will have working class accents, which might not be too far off the RMAT one, but in general, it's just, you know, it's going to be like the same amount of accents you might have in a general, very diverse workplace.
So Nicole and I have been living a lie, and we need to make some calls.
I think I'm going to keep living a lie.
Well, that's good to know. Man, it's just like it's Target at a Saturday all over again. I am overwhelmed and pretty embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed. It's not common knowledge.
Well, it looks like we have covered some ground here. We've got a cool new outfit.
Cool outfit, and I think I kind of have to like do a lot of work now to build a ship.
Yeah, being a pirate doesn't seem as easy as the
So much work.
TV and movies
I
make it
feel
look.
like it's
not
work
as-
all the time.
It's not as glamorous as you think.
Is there a pirate vacation?
You know, there actually are times like kind of during the off-season winter when like the seas are really inhospitable. That's when they'll go on land. Sometimes they'll go on land, you know, kind of build morale back up, you know, have some days rest, have some days just kind of drinking and making merry. The pirate captain, I think it was Bartholomew Roberts, at one point, he decided to go on land so that way they could celebrate Christmas.
We were going to ask about that.
Yeah, that happened. Christmas.
You know, time at sea and traditions, like how long they were out there. Did they come back for holidays?
They weren't really religious. I don't know how much they would observe holidays. Sometimes pirates would kind of like do something for Christmas if they were able to, but it was usually for morale purposes. Like, let's have a chance to like rest and eat food and
Okay.
get your spirits back up.
So on average, like per year, what was their time at sea like?
That it really varied depending on where they were going. It would at least be half the year, maybe 3/4 of it, but it varies so much. It's kind of impossible to give an
They're
answer.
not at sea. Like the idea of a pirate always being at sea was not the case.
Usually not, but if they sailed in different climates enough, they could conceivably be at sea nonstop for like a year, depending on where they were at what time of year. But
It's like the entertainment industry, project to project.
Yeah.
Hiatus.
Okay, are we the modern pirates? Maybe. Thank you so much for coming back and hanging out with us again,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Rebecca. Where can people learn more about you and your other work and all your incredibly deep knowledge? That's a pun. With the ocean. I don't know if it works, but about pirates.
So you can go to my website, rebecca-simon.com, and that's where you'll find links to a whole bunch of articles that I've written, Amazon links to my books. My most recent one is called The Pirate's Code, Laws and Life Aboard Ship, and that's available in hardcover. It'll be available in paperback later this year. And you'll also find links to all the podcasts where I've guested on. I go on podcasts quite often. And you can also find me on TikTok. Just search for Dr. Rebecca Simon on TikTok, and I do pirate videos on there. You can find out more info.
And Dr. Rebecca's coming back next week.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm Elise Willems.
I'm Nicole Zavalich.
Won't you be our gamer?